I'm here to help California business. I use California business, the bear. They've got three condors, California condors, eating on it. Regulations, laws, bureaucracy. All these in combination are killing California business and killing jobs. Okay. In 2007, I had recently gone into the consulting business, and I was asked to represent a small recycler who was being put out of business. And the man was Latino. He was from Peru. He was educated, economics, an intelligent man. Not somebody who wasn't unqualified to run these businesses. And in doing the hearing, I had to deal with a witness of a type that I was unfamiliar with, hadn't seen before, hadn't even heard about. And basically what it was is that the witness was a forensic document examiner. Now this is how staff, bureaucrats within government do things that they're not supposed to do, make things up, because it took years. This was in 2007. I think it was in 2015. We had his counterpart, a man by the name of Tim Chester, testify in a formal hearing before an administrative law judge that he was unqualified to do forensic examination. All he could do is compare ink samples. And this man did the same thing. And then also in an informal hearing, where the trier of fact is a department attorney. The department attorney disregarded all the testimony from one of these so-called witnesses. Now they were being called question document examiners. And when I saw that on the state's website, I looked it up. And you can go on the personnel board, and there's 3 positions: question document examiner 1, question document examiner 2, and a question document examiner supervisor, indicating that they need to be supervised by somebody who's qualified. Interestingly enough, these positions were only found in the Department of Justice. And I called a guy who was one in Justice, and he explained a lot about the qualifications necessary. Even in the state personnel guidelines, they need to have a science background or a computer science background. And they have to have special certifications on top of that. These people didn't have that. In fact, they were a 1 or a 2. They'd never operated as a 1. They'd never been supervised. They just considered themselves experts. So it was important that over time we gained enough knowledge and information to find out that these people, under the proper questioning, under oath, would have to admit that they weren't qualified. And it started one time when I was just infuriated by losing a decision where Tim Chester had testified. And so I called the forensic examiner that he always talks about, trained him, a man by the name of Lloyd Cunningham. He's known for the Zodiac case years ago in San Francisco. And he told me that on a number of occasions Tim Chester has come to him and asked him, what would it take to become a certified forensic examiner? And he says, I've told him on multiple occasions, you're not qualified. That means he didn't have the education to start with, and then he didn't have the proper training. All that was done is that they were trained on a machine that's a glorified copier that can analyze differences in ink. And it's not illegal to use different pens to do your records. In fact, a lot of recyclers do that, although they've now been trained out of it. Now, in the exploration on this question document examiner, I happened to call Cal State Personnel Board, and I spoke to an attorney, and he said he'd check into this, bringing up the issues. They can't have this job title in this type of an organization when it should only be in Department of Justice. And as usual, he never got back to me. But we have testimony under oath. And so, Mr. Mui said, when questioned, what are your duties? I mainly do forensic document examinations under the TSS section. What are your qualifications? Remember, he's got to have science degrees or he's got to have computer science degrees. He says, I have 2 bachelor's degrees at Cal State Long Beach, one in management, one in operations management. Should have been an indicator because the Cal State system doesn't give 2 degrees. They might give you a certificate, but they don't give 2 degrees. Then, once they get introduced by the department, the trier of fact has to recognize them as an expert. And so the attorney for the department asked that he be recognized as an expert, and the trier of fact, an oil and gas engineer, accepted their qualifications. Now, here's what Mr. Mui said under oath. That he had studied under Lloyd Cunningham and Jim Lee Jr. I've been doing that for a good 7 years already, and they have shown me from the basics under the theory and the discovery of previous scientists, basically the backbone of forensic science. And as I pointed out earlier, I've been doing this for 7 years and 2 months now. That was in 2007. That means that he and his counterpart had been doing things that had no basis in fact, no basis as experts, and they had affected who knows how many hundreds of recyclers. Fortunately, we've identified this. Now, if you were a recycler and you were called in about handwriting analysis, you need somebody to know how to attack that. We can do that. But it shows how government kind of grows on itself. And if you don't hold people accountable, if you don't demand transparency, the business environment in California is just going to continue to get worse, and especially under the Cal EPA umbrella. Now, you like to support this work, help all businesses. I encourage you to go to my FundMe account called Save the Bear, make a donation, continue this work. I'll expose people, I'll help defend people, and we'll try to see if we can get California's business environment turned around. Save the Bear. By the way, I talked about how government grows itself. In 2014, the then Deputy Director Ortiz signed a memorandum of understanding with the U.S. Department of Labor. And basically what they decided to do is together target businesses, go after them together. And I've seen this firsthand. I've been in a recycler's office and I've seen U.S. Department of Labor come in and intimidate and completely ignore the facts when doing their job and threaten upon leaving. And it took me a little while to mull it over. I finally found their boss and had a good talk with her, and looks like she pulled him off the case. Now, one other thing. My position is that California's Department of Recycling, Division of Recycling, has targeted immigrant recyclers. Majority of those are Latino. And this memorandum of understanding, where the two of them come against recyclers, should never be allowed. But what's interesting is I went to a meeting where I had Congressman Maxine Waters, Senator Stephen Bradford, the assemblyman from Gardena, I don't want to mess up his name, Japanese man, maybe Marisucci, and also Janice Hahn, LA County Supervisor. And they were all saying how, especially when it pertains to immigration, The state government should not be helping the federal government. Take this memorandum of understanding and rip it up. You're hurting California businesses. You're hurting California families. This has been a business that is easy entry, and immigrants find it easy to get into. It's hard work. It's dirty work. But you know what? They don't mind that if they can get a piece of the California dream. That's what I call our version of the American dream. These people have been denied their rights, and they've had their lives thrown into turmoil, and many of them lost their businesses. Let's put a stop to it. Like me, tell a friend.